You're listening to Off the Cuff. Now, here's your host, Adam Banks.
Welcome, everybody, to Off the Cuff. I am Adam Banks, broadcasting from Lexington, Kentucky. Thank you for listening to the show, and thank you for tuning in to WLXU 93.9 FM. In addition to listening on the radio, you can check out our Facebook live stream at Off the Cuff with Adam Banks, or you could stream the show live from the station website at radiolex.us to listen to us from anywhere in the entire world. I am broadcasting from the Deborah Hensley Studios here at Radio Lex on North Limestone. It is December the 26th, 2024, and this is the last show of the year 2024. We are officially done with Christmas time. Man, to have all of that over, and it just seems like such a relief, but it's also sad in a way. But I hope everybody had a great Christmas time. I'm so blessed to be here with you on December 26th, the last episode of 2024. What a year it has been for this show. So much was accomplished in the year 2024 for Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. This was the first full year that I did this show completely solo, completely by myself with no co-host, and it caused me to have to change the creative direction of the show. It made me open up the creative envelope a little bit, because doing the show with a co-host for years and years, you got used to the routine, you got used to the format. So when you switch that format and you go from a duet to a solo performance, it definitely changes the dynamic of the show. But so much has happened since we did that, and it happened this year in 2024. This show and myself have been nominated for 2 awards in the year 2024. I was nominated as Radio DJ of the Year at the Lexington Music Awards. This program, Off the Cuff with Adam Banks, was nominated for Best Radio Show at the Josie Music Awards in Nashville, Tennessee. The OTC social media grew even further. I was able to also pick up another radio gig at another radio station doing a Sunday time slot where I play music. So it just helped me go into another direction and another avenue of radio. We had several guests here on Off the Cuff with Adam Banks in the year 2024. We had musician Jeremy Zeller. We had rapper Tony Wavy. We had musician Vanessa Davis, musician Unky Bones. We had political candidate Ryan Stanford. We had Superintendent Brent Hoover. We had Cheyenne the Fortune Teller on the show in 2024. So a lot for this show happened this year. But folks, it wasn't just a big year for Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. It was a big year around the world, and a lot of big headlines happened this year in 2024. So we will go through some of the biggest headlines of this year, and we'll start back in January. For instance, in January the 8th is when the Michigan, what do you call the Michigan football team? Michigan State Wolverines? Who knows? But Michigan State, or Michigan, not Michigan State, but Michigan defeats Washington 34-13 to win the college football playoff national championship. Also in January, after 52 years on the throne, Danish Queen Margaret II of Denmark and her eldest son, Crown Prince Frederick, becomes King Frederick X. Also in March, Caitlin Clark becomes the all-time leading scorer in NCAA basketball, surpassing Pete Maravich's record of 3,667 points. She later breaks other records with the Indiana Fever of the WNBA, and her dominance helped women's basketball surge into popularity. That's why Caitlin Clark made this year's list of Off the Cuff's 10 Most Fascinating People. Also, this year, in March of 2024, the container ship Delhi collides with Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge, causing it to collapse. The crash also killed 6 people. April 8th of this year, a total solar eclipse occurred across parts of Mexico, the United States, and Canada. It is North America's second total solar eclipse in 7 years. In April of this year, April 13th, as a matter of fact, Iran strikes Israel with hundreds of drones and missiles during the Israeli-Hamas war. Although the attack seemed to be designed to fail, it marks the first time the two regional powers have come into a direct military confrontation. In May 30th of this year, Donald Trump is found guilty of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. He is the first former U.S. president to be convicted of a crime. June 17th of this year, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the Boston Celtics defeat the Dallas Mavericks to win a record-setting 18th NBA title. So the Boston Celtics have solidified themselves as being the best NBA team of all time. June 27th, 2024 is when U.S. President Joe Biden and Donald Trump faced off for the first time in a presidential debate for the year 2024, and Biden's disastrous performance ended up playing a key role in his decision to drop out of the race later on in July. July 1st of this year is when you had Trump versus the United States. That is when the Supreme Court ruled that the former president, it's when the Supreme Court ruled that former presidents are entitled to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for acts that involved the exercise of their core constitutional powers. So basically, because of this new law, presidents are exempt while in office and from criminal punishment. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think even though you do hold the most powerful office in the land, it still doesn't mean that you should be exempt from what the rest of the citizens have to deal with if they commit a crime. That's just me. On July 13th, 2024, Donald Trump, the Republican presidential nominee, survives an assassination attempt after a gunman opens fire during a campaign event in Pennsylvania. Trump suffers a wound to his ear. That might have been the most fascinating, or maybe the biggest shocking headline of the last 10 years. I mean, when is the last time that we had a assassination attempt on a U.S. president? It happened this year. What a political year for the year of 2024. Most of the people on my 10 most fascinating list made the list from the political world. It was Kamala, Joe Biden, J.D. Vance, etc. On July 26, 2024, the Olympic Games began in Paris, and standout athletes during the 2-week event included American gymnast Simone Biles and swimmer Leon Merchant and Tori Husky. On August 6, 2024, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is officially certified as the Democratic presidential candidate, therefore becoming the first black woman and the first Asian American in U.S. history to win the presidential nomination of a major party. That was a big shock when Biden decided he wasn't going to seek re-election, and then the vice president stepped in and said, "I'll do it." That hadn't happened since Lyndon B. decided not to seek re-election. So a lot of crazy headlines in 2024 for the political world. On August 30th of this year, Brazil blocks X, previously known as Twitter, largely because of rampant disinformation on the website. The ban is lifted in October after X agrees to various requirements, including the removal of certain accounts. On September 26th of this year, Hurricane Helene makes landfall in Florida, causing widespread destruction and more than 230 deaths across the region, especially western North Carolina. Some estimates that the cost of this disaster cost $200 billion, which makes it one of the most costliest hurricanes in United States history. That was a huge hurricane that happened this year. Also, some good news on October the 1st of this year, Jimmy Carter turned 100 years old. And folks, my man Jimmy Carter is still kicking it. He's still living. He's still persevering. And he's still alive. So happy birthday, Jimmy Carter, on October 1st of this year. Happy 100th birthday. On November 5th, there was the historical election where Donald Trump wins the United States presidency again, defeating Kamala Harris. He is the first convicted felon to be elected to the office and the second president to win a second non-consecutive term. And folks, that was some of your biggest headlines for the year 2024. So I am sure that we've still got, 5 days left in the year? Who knows what could happen in the next 5 days? But so far, folks, this has been the biggest headlines this year in 2024. What a year it has been. And I am sure 2025 will have a slew of big headlines to go over in December of that year. But that, folks, is your big headlines of 2024. We still have so much more to recap for the year 2024, so stick around. You are listening to Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Cuff. Adam Banks here with you. We have been reviewing the year 2024, talking about some of the biggest headlines of the year. But folks, unfortunately, in the year 2024, we lost a significant amount of people. Death is a part of life. Everybody deals with death in different ways. Me and one of my producers, before I went on the air, was actually talking about death, and we were talking about how people deal with death in different ways. She says that she would rather see the body before, they get put under the ground, and she says that funerals for her are productive. It helps her with the closure, but I'm the opposite. I don't like funerals. To me, I find them very non-productive. I find it very traumatic to go to a funeral. So I would be good. If I heard somebody was dead, I'd be good with just being like, okay, and just keep my memories in my head of that person. But that's not the way the world works. We like to have organized funerals and celebrate their life. And in ways I can see where that could help, but I'm just not all about that. Death to me it's hard to deal with. But unfortunately, it is a part of life, which means we did have some notable deaths to happen this year, in the year 2024. Folks, this year, in February, we lost Toby Keith, one of my favorite musicians of all time. He died at the age of 62 from stomach cancer. A man that was loved by millions and millions of fans across the world. When I think about Toby Keith, he is one of my favorite artists of all time, like I said, but he's also, I can't think of another artist where I can just name off like 10, 15 songs off the top of my head just like that, rapidly. He had that many good songs. The music world lost such a talent, and the world lost such a great. So he was such a patriot for this country, and the world lost a good man. Toby Keith at the age of 62. In April of this year, we lost O.J. Simpson at the age of 76. O.J. was an American icon. He was a decorated football superstar and Hollywood actor, and he was also a spokesman for the car company Hertz. But what his legacy will always be known as is the person who was acquitted of charges from killing his former wife and her friend, and he was acquitted, found not guilty, and it was the case of the century, the O.J. trial, and that case is still studied in law schools today. O.J. Simpson's legacy will always be that court case, regardless of how good he was on the field. Yes, he was a monster on that field, but unfortunately, he was a monster in real life, too. And even though he was acquitted of those charges, a lot of people say that that was poppycock and that he did do it. But hey, the court system is the court system. He got off. He was said to be not guilty. A lot of people feel like that's not true. Everybody has a right to a fair trial. Now, O.J. eventually went on to prison from a different charge. He was accused of, where he was found guilty of stealing his own memorabilia from a Las Vegas casino. Some say that the judge really stuck it to him during his sentencing to pay him back for the murder that he got off from back in the 90s, that he allegedly got off from, I should say. But O.J. Simpson passed away in April of this year at 76. In May of 2024, Morgan Spurlock passed away at 53. If you don't know who Morgan Spurlock is, he was the documentary filmmaker and Oscar nominee who was famous for making the documentary about where he would basically eat McDonald's every day. And he would talk about how it would have health effects on a person if they ate McDonald's every day. And he died of complications of cancer, unfortunately, in May of 2024. Bill Walton also passed away in May of 2024 at the age of 71. He starred for John Wooden's UCLA Bruins before becoming a Hall of Fame center for his NBA career and one of the biggest stars in basketball broadcasting. In June of this year, we lost Jerry West at the age of 86. He was the Basketball Hall of Famer who is known as the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers. Excuse me. No, I'm not talking about, wrong person there. Wrong person. Jerry West was not the owner of the LA Lakers. I'm thinking of somebody different. Jerry West was a basketball player, Hall of Famer. He coached a little bit for the Lakers, but he is known as the silhouette of the NBA logo. So how iconic is Jerry West? That NBA silhouette that you see on the logo is a silhouette of Jerry West. You can actually Google the actual picture that they used of Jerry West if you go to Google and look that up. Willie Mays passed away in June of this year at the age of 93. If you remember, he made my list as one of the best baseball players of all time this year. Donald Sutherland passed away at 88. I don't really know much about Donald Sutherland, but I recognize that name, so I'm sure a lot of my audience knows who that is. Shelley Duvall passed away in July of this year at the age of 75. She was the actress who played Jack Nicholson's wife in The Shining. Do you remember her iconic scene where he is trying to break through the door? Here's Johnny, and she's crying hysterically. Dr. Ruth passed away at the age of 96 in July. She was the sex therapist and a pop icon for many people. She had that call-in show where people would ask questions about sex, and she would answer those questions. Sex is something that many people are afraid to talk about. They're embarrassed to talk about. But just like death, sex is a part of life too. And Dr. Ruth was not afraid to talk about it. And what made her so appealing to a lot of people was her comfort with the topics. She would make people feel so comfortable talking about sex. Nothing was off limits for her. She never looked at any question as a bad, inappropriate question. And what was very interesting about Dr. Ruth was her age. She was this old lady in her 70s and 80s. She always looked like an 80-year-old woman. Even in her 50s, she looked 80. But this 70-looking-year-old woman talking about sex made it even more bizarre, but she was really good at what she did. She just got out of her comfort zone, talked about that taboo subject of sex, and she became an American icon. But she passed away at the age of 96 years old. Shannon Doherty passed away in July of this year at the age of 53. She was the Beverly Hills 90210 star. Shannon Doherty, I always was a big fan of Shannon Doherty. She was known to be kind of a troublemaker on the set of 90210. She passed away, unfortunately, due to cancer. She was diagnosed about 10 years ago, but it finally caught up to her this year. Richard Simmons passed away on July 13th of this year at the age of 76. We did a whole segment talking about the legacy of Richard Simmons. Bob Newhart passed away at the age of 94 on July the 18th. He had the Bob Newhart Show. Many of my older listeners will remember Bob Newhart. In August of 2024, on August 18th, as a matter of fact, we lost Phil Donahue, who was a pioneer in the daytime talk show world. He was the one who really launched that daytime talk format where you have the host in the audience holding a microphone with his cards up with the name showing, walking around, asking questions to the audience, letting the audience participate. He was the one who pioneered that type of talk show. And it was because of him we had people like Sally Jesse Raphael and Oprah Winfrey and Jerry Springer and Maury Povich and Jeannie Jones. It was because of people like Phil Donahue, who passed away at 88. Psycho Sid, real name Sid Udy, passed away at 63 years old. Anytime a wrestler passes away, it always breaks my heart. It seems like it happens more and more. And that's because of the time that we're in. Most of the wrestlers that I grew up watching are now aging. The lifespan for a wrestler, due to the wear and tear they put on their bodies, don't really live long lives. And Psycho Sid was one of the wrestlers that we lost this year. In September of this year, we lost James Earl Jones at the age of 93. He was the voice of people like Darth Vader, people like Mufasa on The Lion King, and he just had such a booming voice, and it made him an icon in Hollywood because that was the voice that everybody wanted to have. He had that announcing voice. He would do movie trailers. Do you remember when movie trailers would have a voice over talking about the movie? A lot of those was James Earl Jones doing that. Tito Jackson passed away on September the 15th of this year. He was the famous brother of Michael Jackson and one of the members of the Jackson 5. Chris Christopherson passed away at 88. Again, somebody that I'm not really familiar with, but I feel like a lot of my older listeners will know who that is. He passed away on September the 28th. Drake Hodgeston passed away at age 70. And if you don't know who that is, he is the guy who played John Black on Days of Our Lives. He played that character for 38 years on that show, and he passed away from pancreatic cancer on September the 28th. Pete Rose passed away at age 83 on September 30th. He was the Baseball Hall of Famer. Some say the greatest baseball player of all time. He was another who made my list. The most iconic Red to ever put on a uniform. He's got several World Series titles. And what I love about Pete was not only was he a big baseball fan, but he was a big wrestling fan too. He's also in the WWE Hall of Fame. He participated in wrestling events. So I was a big fan of Pete Rose, a brilliant baseball mind. He loved to gamble, and it got him in trouble. But he seemed like he lived a pretty happy life. He ended his last days surrounded by his loved ones. Philip Zimbardo passed away on October the 14th of this year. If you don't know who that is, Philip Zimbardo was the psychologist behind the controversial Stanford prison experiment that was intended to examine the psychological experiences of imprisonment. If you don't know anything about the Stanford prison experiment, that was basically an experiment that this psychologist put together where he hired actors, like 20 actors to play prison inmates and 20 actors to play prison guards, and they had to play these roles for 7 days. And he wanted to study the behavior of both groups, the prison guards and the prisoners, to see how they would act in that world. And they made a whole movie about this, folks. Hollywood made a whole movie about it. It really got into the heads of these prisoners, that they were really prisoners, and it got in the heads of the prison guards the most, that they were really prison guards, and they were treating and abusing these prison guards, or they were abusing these prisoners. And they really did nothing wrong in reality, but the psychology of putting on that uniform and being in that environment made their thinking change, and it changed their behavior. It was a fascinating experiment. Liam Payne passed away at the age of 31 on October the 16th. He is the former One Direction singer who had the chart-topping band that had tons of songs. One Direction, they split up in 2016, but he still was a big pop star. He had fans from all over the world, and apparently he passed away from falling from a hotel balcony. Something so simple and such a freak accident killed him. I think it was like the third floor, high enough to where it would kill you. You know, you can go up so far and survive a fall. You can maybe even survive a third floor fall, fourth floor fall. Anything above that, you're really pushing it. Really pushing it. But he unfortunately passed away at 31, such a young age. Quincy Jones passed away on November 3rd of 2024. He was the multi-talented music titan. He produced musicians like Michael Jackson. He was the guy who produced the Thriller album. He produced scores, collaborating with Frank Sinatra and Ray Charles. And he also was the creator of the TV sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, starring Will Smith. Tony Todd passed away at the age of 69 on November the 6th. Tony Todd was known as the Candyman. Do you remember the iconic horror movie from the 80s? I met Tony Todd in Lexington a few years ago at a Lexington Con. Couldn't have been nicer. I had him say one of my favorite things that he said during a movie. He was in Final Destination, and me and my roommates used to love his character. And I got him to say something back to me that he said in the movie, and he did it with a smile on his face and no problem. And I loved Tony Todd. I hated to hear that he passed at such a young age. And then finally, at the age of 83 on November the 23rd, the world lost Chuck Woolery, the former Wheel of Fortune host and former host of shows like Love Connection and Scrabble, and former Morehead State University graduate, which is my alma mater. So Chuck Woolery passed away at the age of 83. Always sad when we lose people in the year, but it is inevitable. It is never going to change. Every single year there will be a memoriam, because that is a part of life, folks. Every single year we lose people. So that, folks, was just a list of some of the notable people who passed away in 2024. But, folks, we still have more of the year 2024 to recap, so stick with us. We will be right back.
I'm vanilla, baby. I'll choke you, but I ain't no killer, baby.
Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Cuff. Adam Banks here with you. We're talking about some of the biggest things that happened in the year of 2024. This is our recap show, the last year, or the last episode of the year. This song right here, Lovin' on Me by Jack Harlow, was the biggest song of the year, topping the charts for 5 weeks in the year of 2024. Jack Harlow, a Kentucky boy from Louisville, Kentucky. Polarization was the Merriam-Webster word of the year. If you want to know what polarization means, it's a very specific kind of division. It says that polarization means that we are tending toward the extremes rather than toward the center. Interesting word, Merriam. Polarization. So what were some of the top 24 Google searches for the year 2024? Number one trending search in the U.S. for this year was the election. The number one trending person for this year was Donald Trump. The number one trending actor for 2024 was Cat Williams. I think that's partly because of his interview he did on the Shade and Sharp podcast where he called out all of the stand-up comedians. The number one trending movie of the year 2024 was Inside Out 2, a movie I have yet to see. The number one trending show for the year was Grizzdelia, which I've not seen. The number one trending athlete was Mike Tyson, partly because of his triumphant return to the ring. I guess I really can't say triumphant. He lost the match, but he still brought in millions of viewers for that show, so Tyson still got it. The number one trending sports team for the year was the New York Yankees. The number one trending musician was Usher. That's partly because of his Super Bowl performance. Number one trending song was Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. The number one trending recipe is Olympics chocolate muffins. Number one trending game for the year 2024 was Connections. The number one movie, according to Box Office, was Inside Out 2 with 38.4% of the worldwide box office. They took in more money than anybody else at the box office. Inside Out 2. As far as TV shows, this year we saw the return of such shows such as Abbott Elementary, The Boys, Outer Banks, and Bridgerton, and The Bear. New TV shows that took the internet by storm was shows like Baby Reindeer, One Day, and Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, and Avatar, The Last Airbender, and the TV show Shogun. The top 10 American slang words in 2024, bougie. Bougie is a word that means that you... let me see if I can explain this. Bougie is when you only like the nice things. The not so nice things to you are unacceptable. So if you're bougie, you're somebody that only wants to sit front row. You're somebody who only wants to fly first class. That's what bougie means. And that was one of the most popular words of the year 2024. Bussin' was another top word for the year 2024. Bussin' means amazing, really good. For instance, you could say something like, these potato chips are bussin', meaning these potato chips are really good. Drip was another popular word for 2024. Drip means stylish, sophisticated. Your clothes or your appearance has a lot of drip. Extra was another word. Extra means dramatic, attention-grabbing. You're just being too much. Rent-free was another slang word in 2024 that was very popular. Rent-free means to become an obsession, to dominate someone's thoughts. For instance, a lot of people say that John Calipari lives rent-free in Kentucky fans' mind. Rent-free is when you're always bringing somebody up. Always bringing somebody up. Always talking about somebody. That means they're living rent-free in your head. Salty was another word that was popular in 2024. Salty means to overreact. Shook was another popular slang word. Shook means you are stunned or you're shocked about something. Vibe check was another popular slang word in 2024. Vibe check is to make sure someone is having a good time. So you just want to do a vibe check. If you're at a concert with somebody and you want to make sure they're having a good time, you're going to do a vibe check. Woke was another slang popular word in the year 2024. And the definition of woke is when you are socially conscious or you are culturally aware. So that was the most popular words of the year 2024. The top trending sports moments for this year was obviously the UEFA European Championship. It led the top trending searches globally. Other athletic events were trending, such as Usher's Super Bowl halftime performance and the Olympics chocolate muffins. What is up with the Olympic chocolate muffins? Did I miss something this year with that? Because that made the list as one of the most trending sports moments of the year. The Yankees winning The World Series was another big trending sports moment, and the Michigan Wolverines winning the National Football and the Yukon Huskies winning the National Basketball Championship. Top trending news moments was obviously the United States election, the Donald Trump assassination, the Joe Biden not seeking re-election, and Kamala Harris becoming the first Asian American to run for president. Top trending it says top trending pop culture moments, Inside Out 2. We've already talked about that. Yada, yada, yada. So there you go, folks. That is some of the biggest, just most popular things that happened in the year 2024 in terms of just sports and news moments and words and slang. So there you go. Some popular things right there. But folks, just in 5 days, we will be experiencing a new year, which means there's going to be a crop of new words that we will learn, a crop of new headlines that will happen. And it's that time for you to start thinking of your New Year's resolution, because the big day, New Year's Eve, is upon us. And that is when everybody gathers around with their family, their friends. They celebrate the old year going out and the new year coming in. New Year's Eve, one of my favorite holidays. It's like a brand new chapter on the first day of January. It's the start of a new year. It's a great way to start a goal. If you don't have goals in life, folks, what do you have? So how about a little New Year's song for Off the Cuff's Song of the Week break this week? Here is Death Cab for Cutie with The New Year. We'll be back, folks, after the song. I'm sure many people received many gifts from friends and families. So you maybe want to consider writing a thank you note, because today's national holiday, folks, is National Thank You Note Day. And no better day to write a thank you note than the day after Christmas, because a lot of people took time to wrap your gift, to buy your gift, to think of what you would want. So much goes into getting a gift. And I love giving gifts more than receiving them. That's my love language, is giving gifts. I love giving gifts to people. And I always appreciate when somebody gives a gift to me. I always want to show gratitude. And one thing that we could all do a little bit more is show gratitude. And one of the best ways to show gratitude is by writing a thank you note. Thank you notes go a long way. I actually teach this to my students when they're on the job at work. And let's say somebody shows you how to do something, or they show you how to do a certain procedure, and it really helped you at your job. Go out of your way by just writing out a little thank you note saying, hey, thank you for all your help today, and putting it on their desk. That does so much. That does so much. You've done so little. And in return, that just does so much for the other person. That shows gratitude, and they're more likely to help you again. And folks, people love to know that you appreciate them. They do. Showing gratitude to somebody is showing them that you appreciate them. And the best way to do that, folks, one of the best ways to do that is to write a thank you note. And thank you notes have been around for a long time. As a matter of fact, the first known thank you note was from the 1400s. And that's when it was originated, when the Europeans exchanged greeting cards with friends and families. That's what started thank you notes. In the 1800s is when Mary Shelley wrote a thank you note to her friend Lord Byron, thanking him for allowing her to spend the summer at his home in Geneva, where the story of Frankenstein was thought into reality. In 1856, Poas Prang introduced thank you notes to the United States after he immigrated from Germany. And then in 2000, do you guys remember the song Stan by Eminem, where Eminem writes back a thank you note to his obsessive fan? So Thank you notes have been in pop culture as well. We love thank you notes because they are handwritten. There's just something to be said about something that is handwritten. Not many things are handwritten anymore. It's typed out. Back in the day, I used to love receiving love letters or writing a love letter. And the same thing could be said about a thank you note. Thank you notes should be handwritten. They shouldn't be typed out. They should be handwritten because it just makes it even more personable. You have somebody's handwriting. And that is an identity from somebody that nobody else has. Something that you have that nobody else does is a fingerprint. Everybody has a fingerprint, but everybody's fingerprint is different. And everybody has different handwriting. Every individual in the world writes different. So when you have somebody's personalized handwriting, that says a lot. It makes it even more personable. So we love thank you notes because they're handwritten, they make us feel special, and it allows us to practice our penmanship. Think about it. We don't write a lot anymore. When I write something, my writing tends to get sloppier and sloppier as I get older, and I think that's partly because here in the world, we don't write as much as we used to. Older people have much better penmanship than the newer generations because older people, that's the way they communicated, through writing. Nowadays, people don't write anymore, so penmanship is pretty bad. So writing thank you notes will help improve your penmanship. So happy National Thank You Note Day. It's a good day to write it. You guys, I'm sure, receive plenty of gifts from friends and family. So write them a thank you note. Just like you would at a baby shower or a wedding shower. Write down a list of everyone who got you a gift and write them a small thank you note. But make sure you handwrite it. It makes it more personable. All right, folks, we still have one more segment to go. You are listening to Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Cuff. Adam Banks here with you. Last segment of the hour. This is our year in review episode, the last episode of the year 2024. Happy New Year, everyone. December 26th, the day after Christmas. We survived Christmas. Not quite survived the holidays just yet, but we are aiming closer and closer of surviving the holiday season. We've been talking about some of the biggest moments for the year 2024. We talked about at the top of the hour some of the biggest headlines across the world for the year. But what about in the world of pop culture? What were some big headlines in the year 2024 for the pop culture world? Well, in 2024, folks, we got this song by Sabrina Carpenter, Espresso, which was the #1 stream song on Spotify for this year. Streaming seems to be the way people listen to music now. So if your music or your song is the #1 streaming song of the year, that's a massive success. This year in 2024 is when we were introduced to the Hot Tua girl. If you don't know who that is, just Google it. There's really no need to go over who that is. I think that girl is disgusting. And that whole thing is disgusting. I mean, just Google it. The Hot 2 girl. She was introduced in 2024. Also, Justin Timberlake was arrested for a DUI while he was on tour. And he was famously quoted as, "This is going to ruin the tour." That's what he said to the police officer as he was arresting him. Not a big fan of JT. I like some of his songs. Him as a person, he's just a turd. The Willy Wonka movie come out this year, which made everybody go crazy for Timothée Chalamet. The Alaska Airlines flight had a door fly off of the hinges mid-flight. Can you believe that happened this year in 2024? A door from an airplane flying off its hinges? I am getting ready to jump on an airplane in a few days to go to Las Vegas. I do not need to be reminded that a door flew off the hinges. Could you imagine the fear of those people on that plane who was sitting there with a door off the plane and they could see out the plane with a big opening? If you wasn't buckled up, you would have been sucked out. You still could have been sucked out from all the pressure. Crazy to think that happened this year. Ryan Gosling this year surprised everyone with his performance of I'm Just Ken. It won an award at the Golden Globes, at the Oscars, and at the Critics' Choice Awards. Can you believe that song was that popular? A lot of people don't think Ryan Gosling is a good performer. Well, a lot of people thought he wouldn't be, but they found out this year that he was. People forget that Ryan Gosling, before he became an actor, was actually a part of the Mickey Mouse Club with Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake and Christina Aguilera and people like that he was involved with. He sang before he acted, so it was no surprise to me when he got up and did a good job singing at the Oscars. Elmo traumatized everybody this year by making one tweet. He just wanted to check in on everybody. He said, how's everybody doing? And, everybody loves Elmo. And everybody started responding on Twitter back to Elmo. People saying, oh, Elmo, I'm doing good, just struggling a little bit. Mortgage is hurting me. My job's hurting me. My kids are hurting me. My wife's hurting me. Everybody started just spilling their emotions out to Elmo. And it was very, very sad. And it just really hit people in the feelings when a childhood character pops up on Twitter and checks in on everybody and says, how's everybody doing? And everybody just starts spilling their guts to Elmo about all the troubles and trials that they had. Taylor Swift took over the Super Bowl. Everybody was tuning in to watch the Super Bowl, obviously, but one of the biggest reasons was just to see Taylor Swift on camera. She also brought Ice Spice and Lana Del Rey with her. Usher performed at the Super Bowl this year, which was a big pop culture headline. It's also weird to think that those Kate Middleton missing theories happened this year. Do you remember that back in March when everybody was saying that Kate Middleton was missing? But apparently that was a rumor. She wasn't missing, but it started swirling this year that she was missing. And the TikTok ban almost happened in the year 2024. It won't happen this year. It could actually happen in 2025. They've been pushing it back and back further and further. Joe Biden was all about banning TikTok. Trump, not so much. I know at one point in time he was. I think he's changed his view and stance on the social media brand. But I think now Congress is trying to wait for the new president to take over in 2025. So they're trying to push that hearing for the TikTok ban to 2025. But it was almost banned, folks, in 2024. Can you imagine if it actually happens next year? If TikTok is banned? Yeah, we'll be okay. The citizens of this country will find something else, another platform to post to and to death scroll through. So it won't be the end of the world as we know it. It's just a part of life. We lost social media before, MySpace, Vine. We just always come up with something different. So that will be crazy if that happens. JoJo Siwa she rebranded her whole entire look this year in 2024. JoJo Siwa was known as a kid star. She had that kid brand. She sold tons of children merchandise, but she came out of the closet as a lesbian and she changed her image into more of an adult image, and she changed it this year in 2024, which caused a lot of headlines. So folks, that were some of the biggest pop culture headlines for the year 2024. So a lot has happened this year in 2024, and folks, one of the things that I am so proud of this year was just the listenership of this show has grown significantly. The recognition that this show has gotten from the awards. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. This has been the most fun I've ever had doing this show. It's been right here in this year. And I really do feel like that some of the best shows that we have done, that we have broadcasted for this show, have been broadcasted in the year 2024. So I couldn't be more proud of this show and its accomplishments for this year, and I couldn't be more thankful for my audience this year in 2024. So I want everyone to have a great New Year's. Please, folks, be safe out there. Whether you're going to New York City, watching the ball drop with Ryan Seacrest on television, going to church, wherever you may be going on New Year's Eve, please be safe and get home safe, because that's what matters, folks. And know that 2024 is over. It is the end of a old year. It is the beginning of something new. Think of December 31st as page 365 of that chapter, and January 1st is page 1 of a new one. So, folks, that should make you excited. But that pretty much wraps up the last show of 2024 here on Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. What a year it has been for the show. Folks, I just want to say next week I will be in Las Vegas, Nevada, so there will be a replay next week, but we will be back in 2 weeks, live in studio with the first show of 2025. If you liked what you heard today, you'll probably like our previous episodes. We archive them all on podcast. You can stream the show on podcast wherever you get your podcast. You can follow the show on social media at Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. You can follow me on social media at The Adam Banks. We release new episodes every Thursday from 4 to 5 right here on WLXU 93.9 FM. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new live episode. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Off the Cuff, and I am the king of radio, Adam Banks. I will see you next year in 2025.
Sincere.